Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Welcome today to my review of the Axios Flagship, the second watch from the brand, and the second watch from the brand that I have reviewed on the channel. I looked at their debut model, the Ironclad, just over a year ago, and I described it as a spec monster. Perhaps a little bit generic, but an awful lot of watch for not a lot of money, and I was excited to see where the brand went from there. And this is where the brand have gone from there. A decidedly more kind of retro, neo-retro vintage style look. Think Zodiac, Super Seawolf, or perhaps a Rado Captain Cook vibe, and that's kind of where you're going with this one. Now, to be clear, this video is sponsored by Axios. They sent me this watch for free. I don't have to send it back. You could describe Axios as a cousin brand perhaps of Singapore-based Micro Zelos that you've seen plenty of here and elsewhere on YouTube, I'm sure. El Shantang, who's the owner of Zelos, is one of a number of owners of Axios. So you kind of know what you're getting. A well-designed, well-thought, well-spec'd, well-made watch. And indeed, this is a well-designed, well-thought-out, well-spec'd and well-made watch. But can I be honest with you? I'm a little bit confused as to how they've branded it. I don't think it quite works, and I'm going to express my confusion today using the power of music. So for a retro 60s, 70s style dive watch, I was expecting the vibe to be all... But then you look at the thing, you look at the minimalist logo, you look at some of the colour schemes that are in operation here, and it's clear that there's a lot of Zelos DNA running through this watch, which I think is far more futuristic, more like... And then you look at the Axios website and it's all about the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805 between Nelson and Napoleon. And indeed all of the different colourways are named after Nelson's ships. And if you look at the case back of the watch, there's a big embossed naval vessel from the 19th century, which to me is far more... Now you put all of those three elements together and you end up with... Alright. You get my idea. I just don't think they've got the mesh of things right. I don't think they've got the branding right. I think they've over-branded it. I said in the Ironclad review that it had a little bit of micro-brand by numbers feel about it, and I think they've just tried too hard to get a whole vintage naval thing happening here that doesn't really work. I mean, I just don't see men with scurvy firing cannons at each other when I look at this watch. Now, this is only my opinion after all. I'm not sure how you feel about it. Leave me a comment, let me know whether you think it's all necessary. I just think it's a bit unnecessary, and I would love to see them perhaps tone it down in future models. Anyway, as I said, it's a well-spec'd, well-thought-out, comfortable watch. Let's flip the camera and actually have a look at it, shall we? You may be relieved to hear that I have very few further complaints, and any that I do have will not be expressed musically. So it comes in this little cardboard box. I do like that Axios logo. That was the minimalist logo that I referred to a few minutes ago. Inside it contains, I'm guessing it's a PU leather, little travel pouchy. Not a bad overall package for the money. Now the money, if you missed it, was $495 US. Perhaps not the bargain therefore that the Ironclad was last year if you missed that one, but I think that $500 is pretty much spot on in terms of its small group of peers. There is a little subgenre of 40mm retro divers on beads of rice bracelets. I'll talk about some of its obvious rivals later, but I think this one stacks up well. You also get some nice design features today, and you get a second strap. It's a Tropic strap, nice little bonus in the package with an Axios labelled buckle and tang here. I will put it on that later on. One not quite so welcome carryover from the Zelos lineage is only a 1-year warranty with this one. I do wish they would give you a 2-year warranty, especially for 500. But I do think it is a nicely designed overall, wearable, comfortable and quite attractive looking watch for your cash. So they call it a 40, my calipers measure it at 39.5, so a little bit smaller than that. 13mm thick, and that includes a piece of box dome sapphire, 46 lug to lug, nice and compact, 20mm lug width. There is a little bit of taper on that first link, tapering down to 18, back up to just over 20 at the clasp, and this is the holy grail of micro brand clasps, by the way. Sized up for me, 7-inch wrist, this one comes in at 144 grams, so a great set of dimensions overall. 316L stainless steel case. Now I'll show you the case in more detail in a second. Some really nice design features here. It's undercut, small crown, it does sit very comfortably on wrist. Stainless steel coin edge bezel, stainless steel crown, and it is a full stainless steel bracelet with solid end links and solid links, and it is of course the beads of rice that I mentioned as well. You will need a decent 1mm screwdriver if you want to adjust these links yourself. And the clasp. I really do enjoy these clasps. This is pretty much optimal for me. It's a proper machine clasp. It's got a nice fold over that's recessed. It has a deep etched Axios logo there. Double security pushers, 6 holes of micro adjust, chamfered edge, no need for any unnecessary divers extensions here. That is pretty much optimal as far as I'm concerned, and I am a bit of a clasp fetishist, as you well know. So a fairly unusual case profile when you look at it from this angle. This features a Miyota 9000 series movement which has a fairly short stack, meaning if you want to take advantage of that, you can come up with a very slim case. If you took away the piece of box dome sapphire, I reckon there's about 11.5mm here overall, but very, very slim mid case. You can see the mid case just extends to the crown stem, and it is undercut quite seriously. Beneath that, fairly slim case back screwed on there as well. Now, because of that slim mid case and slim tapering lugs, you don't get drilled lugs here, but I think it looks good on wrist and it wears very comfortably, as I mentioned earlier, as a consequence. So there's a little bit of vertical brushing on this mid case, brushing on the lugs, and there is a chamfered edge that actually extends down towards the tip. Coin edge bezel, all nice and easy to grip, and the little Axios logo that I showed you on the box there earlier on the crown, but just printed on high polished end of the crown. Zoomed in on the dial, and this one is the Victory colorway, named after the ship captained by none other than Admiral Nelson himself, although I'm not quite sure why they didn't just call it teal, because it definitely has that Zelos teal look. I specifically requested this colorway. I'm trying to get away from just asking for everything in black and gilt, as has been my want over the last 12 months or so. I thought that teal is very, very striking, having looked at the titanium swordfish recently, and I thought it goes nicely with that cool kind of ice grey sapphire bezel insert. So fully loomed sapphire bezel insert, and the bezel action is amazing. 120 click unidirectional, really, really solid and robust feeling, and plenty of loom. I'll put the loom video up here. Again, another little tip they borrowed from Zelos is that two-tone look. Plenty of X1 grade C3 superluminova, that's the green on the hands and the indexes. There is a smattering of BGW9, that is the blue, everywhere else. Now, when I turn the speed up, you'll see that the bezel insert fades first, as does those little blue BGW9 touches, but really it's the hands and the indexes that you want to last well. And here we are right at the end of my 20-minute test period, which I reckon is about 4 to 5 hours equivalent of human eye, and it's still glowing very, very well. So the Axios logo under the index at 12 is applied, as are those indexes. Kind of trapezium shaped, segmented at the 12, the 3 and the 9, and single smaller trapeziums everywhere else. We've got a date frame around the date window at the 6 o'clock, and it is colour matched and quite nicely integrated down there. The word flagship there printed above the 200 metres, 660 feet. The model name, it kind of looks like a bit of an afterthought, to be honest. I'm not sure that that font is particularly well chosen. I'm not sure that it really needs to be there at all, but it is quite small. It is barely noticeable. Now, the handset's flat and fairly simple, but they are well proportioned, and I think they suit the look overall. Very long minute hand pushing all the way out to the edge of the minute track, and a slightly wider hour hand, so you do get a clear read on this one. There is a touch of colour on the end of the paddle tip to that second hand, picking out the red triangle on the bezel insert, and also the red 200 metres 660 feet text. Everything else in that glorious teal blue colour. Overall, I like the look of this watch. It has got that kind of neo-retro 60s, 70s with a little bit of futuristic design thrown into it. Which is why, as noted, I don't quite get the Man of War on the case back. It kind of throws the whole thing a little bit sideways. But there you are, the usual spec sheet flagship, 200 meter sapphire crystal, advertising it's a 9015. And these are all limited to 200, that's on the warranty card. So this is number 153 of 200. And it's all nicely done at least. If you aren't familiar with it, the Miyota 9015 is a Japanese-made 24 joule hacking and hand-winding auto running at 28,800 vibrations per hour. That is to say 8 ticks of the second hand per second, so you get a much smoother, a noticeably smoother sweep than you do with a lesser movement running at 3 Hz, 21,600 vibrations per hour. This one, as you can see there, great set of numbers, +6 a day is just what you want from a daily, healthy amplitude and 0 beat error. The only negative with these Miyota 9000 series, as with the 8000 series, is they only wind in one direction, which means they spin freely in the other direction. So there is a little bit of noticeable, perhaps not so much wobble, but you can hear this one spinning on your wrist. And I think it looks great when you get it on wrist. I've got a 7-inch wrist for your reference. I tend to go for 40 or thereabouts. That's my personal sweet spot. You can just notice that it's a smidge under 40, this one coming in at 39.5, but there's still plenty of weight to it, 144 grams, and there it is. Oh, the holy grail of clasps there. I just love that clasp. It is perfect. Lots of articulation from these beads of rice bracelets, very, very comfortable in operation. The crown is nice and small, and that undercutting means it fits the wrist nicely. The lugs point downwards. It is a very, very comfortable watch to wear, and I think a good looking one also. There we are, that's the overhead shot, nice and legible. Teal and grey is one option. There is that black and gilt as mentioned. There is an all blue, which I think is a little bit boring compared to some of the other colourways. And there's one with a two-tone bezel, which I think looks great. That one reminds me more of the Zodiac, very 1960s. So there's a kind of spread of different looks depending on which of the colourways you went for. But I really quite like this one. Now when I take this one outside, maybe the teal will look a bit different in natural light than it did under my studio lights. What I'm sure you'll notice here is there's a lot of light play coming off that flat sapphire bezel insert when in combination with the box sapphire crystal covering the dial. Box sapphire, not cheap. That really is, I think, a worthwhile addition and certainly helps with the whole retro vibe. On wrist, short lug to lug, you can see the downturn of those lugs. It fits very, very nicely indeed, this one. Not a huge number of spare links though. I reckon if you're a guy with much bigger wrists than I am, say 8 inches plus, you're probably going to struggle with this one. Maybe you'd be better wearing it on the Tropic strap. Nice segue, Jody. Tropic strap is a high quality item with high quality matching hardware. Looks okay with this one, maybe it would look better on that black and gilt model, and the bracelet is so good here, really. 9 times out of 10, you're going to be sticking with that beads of rice, I reckon. Moans and niggles. Well, I complained about the 1-year warranty that really should be a 2-year warranty earlier on, and I made my issues with the branding perfectly clear as well. Maybe I blame the Rado Captain Cook that I referenced in the intro. Everybody feels the need to attach their 60s, 70s style dive watch to a crusty old Sea Dog. I just don't think it's necessary. They'd have been better, in my opinion, doing something a little bit less obvious with the tie-in on this one. And then there's the value. $4.95, it's not quite the bargain that the Ironclad was. I do think it stacks up well against the competition though, even though it has a Miyota 9000 series and it doesn't have the word Swiss made on the dial. So what then is the competition? Well, I'm guessing the EMG Nemo at $450, so a little bit cheaper, with also a Miyota movement on that beads of rice bracelet, but that one doesn't quite come with the sapphire bezel insert and the superb loom that this one does. The Baltic Aquascape is another obvious competitor, perhaps a little bit more vintage in styling than the Flagship, but it's a little bit more expensive as well. As is the Doxa 200. I picked up one of these a couple of weeks ago. I'll be reviewing it probably towards the end of the month. Now, Doxa certainly has a better known brand than Axios, and it has an ETA 2824. It's got a sapphire bezel insert as well, but I'm not sure that I can see $500 difference between these two watches. Certainly they both come on that beads of rice. It's a nice little subcategory as mentioned, but I think the one on the Axios is better than the one on the Doxa, and the Clasp on the Axios is a mile better than that really not all that fantastic one on the Doxa. So $500 might not be cheap for the flagship, but I think there's a bit of value there when you compare it to its peers. So there you have it, the Axios Flagship. In spite of my concerns and my misgivings regarding their branding overall, it's a really nice watch. If you like the look of it and you're prepared to pay 500 USD for one of these retro style beads of rice divers, then I think you could certainly do a lot worse than this one. It stacks up nicely compared to the EMG Nemo or the Baltic Aquascape, I'm sure of that. Doesn't do too badly when you compare it next to that Doxa 200 sub for twice the price, does it? Thanks for watching. I will see you in a future video.